Shalom Aleichem. We are holding by Pashas Vayetze, Tovshin Pei Daled. Let's go back a few weeks ago. We mentioned a comment which was made by the Chofetz Chaim. He had said that in 1918, that he would say eventually Klal Yisrael will be in a situation of Eis Tzora LeYaakov, a time of great difficulty for Klal Yisrael, Umimenu Yivashea. But from there they will be saved. Those are the words of the Chofetz Chaim regarding the third war of Gog and Magog. We mentioned it several weeks ago. We then brought down the comment of Rabbi Aharon Leib Shteinman, Zecher Tzaddik Livrocha. Rabbi Aharon had said, based on those words of the Chofetz Chaim, Cheblei Mashiach muchochim lovai, we must go through the birth pangs of the Mashiach. Rak hamaskil be'eis hazois, only a thinking, sensitive person. We explained that the word the maskil means, like the Vilna Gaon mentions at the beginning of Mishlei, someone who is sensibly thought out, very well thought out. He understands his situation, he's sensitive to the needs, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives him success and hatzlocha. Haskola means success. And that's the meaning of a masculism. Someone who is alert and sensitive to the times, should be quiet and prepare. With great preparation. Maybe such a person will be privileged to see the comfort and the return, meaning the Geula Shleima of Klal Yisrael. That was a definition which we used. And we mentioned last week that perhaps Lanias Daiti, one of the greatest maskilim, one of the greatest sensitive people and with great insight and tremendous wisdom in our time, was Rabbi Aharon Leib Shteinman, Zecher Tzaddik Livrocha, the God Lador, who was nifta a few years ago just before Hanukkah. And Lanias Daiti, I think he was an incredible maskil. He understood the situation, he understood people, he understood the times, he understood the need of Klal Yisrael in different countries. That's why he traveled very much abroad at different times. He had tremendous understanding and insight. And then we mentioned last week, after an awful pigua, an awful terrorist attack, which took place in Yerushalayim, I think it was the number 2 bus. Rabbi Shteinman came to Haunof, and I was living there at that time, and he spoke in a shul, the Imwei Shefer shul, on the Chov Katzenelbogen. And Rabbi Shteinman said as follows: in time of danger, one should be particularly careful and be zoris about three mitzvahs. The mitzvahs are Omein Yehei Shmei Rabbo, saying Omein Yehei Shmei Rabbo in Kaddish, Kedushas Beis HaKnesses, and saying 100 brachos a day. And those are the mitzvahs which give security and protection in a time of danger. Those are the words of Shteinman in Haunof. You might ask, what about other mitzvahs like studying Torah or Kriyas Shema or keeping Shabbos? Those are also great mitzvahs. But from his great elevated spiritual vision, I'm suggesting, Rav Shteinman specifically said those 3 mitzvahs. Those are the mitzvahs which, in reality, their common factor of all of them is they bring the Shekhinah down. They bring the presence of the Almighty down into the situation and the environment where you are. That's the greatness of these mitzvahs. You are living with the Shekhinah. You're bringing him down. And we explained last week the enormous power which there is in Omein Yehei Shmei Rabbo. HaKadosh Baruch Hu lives in the higher world called the world of Atzilus. Atzilus means the very high world where the Kisei HaKoved is. And that's the meaning of Omein Yehei Shmei Rabbo Mevorach. Le'olam is the highest world of all, the world of Atzilus, the world of the Kisei HaKoved. And that's where we have our Neshama Elyoina. That's the source of our life. Then you go down another level, is the world of Bria, which is the world of something from nothing, Yesh Mi'ayin, like the sun and the planets are created of something from nothing, and that's where we have our neshama, which is our thoughts, our minds, and everything, the rationale, which we have in our minds. Then you go down to the world of Yetzirah. Olam is one word, Olmei is 2, Bria and Yetzirah. We explained last week. Yetzirah means the world of something from something else, to be formed something else, like human beings, or agriculture, or comes something from something else. That's the world of Yetzirah. And Olmaya, the last, Olam Lomei, Olmaya is one at the end, which is the world of Asiyah, the world of our activity, where we live. And the nature of the power of Omein Yehei Shmei Rabbo, the Gemara brings down in Shabbos, Daf Kuf Yotes, you bring the Shekhinah down from the enormous eminence and the source of bracha, you bring it down, Olam, to the world of Yetzilus, Olmei, Bria and Yetzirah, and Olmaya, to the world in which we live in. And that's the nature of Omein Yehei Shmei. It brings the Shekhinah down into the location where we are, and therefore there's a given protection because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there in the area, in the location where you are. What I'd like to do this week is discuss the second mitzvah which he meant, and that was the Kedushas Beis HaKnesses, the great Kedusha that there is inside a shul. And he said also for the same reason as well, you bring the Shekhinah down into the location where you are. In particular, the shul is the center, the focus, maybe the reservoir of all Kedusha in an area. The nature of a shul is it holds all the Kedusha of the community, all the different homes which are around. The center of the Shekhinah is the shul itself. And therefore, one must be very careful of the Kedusha of the Beis HaKnesses. That is the source of the Shekhinah in a community. The Chofetz Chaim writes in Hilchos Beis HaKnesses, I think it's Siman Kuf Nun Aleph in the Shulchan Aruch, he explains one should be very careful how one speaks, what one says inside the Beis HaKnesses. Why? Because that is the source of Kedusha, that is a sort of protection for the community. Once the Shekhinah is protected in that area, therefore the whole community is safe. And that was the nature of what Rabbi Shteinman had meant. That was the basis behind saying that. I'd like to examine that in a little bit more depth and therefore give you something like a case study this week. What does it mean, the Kedusha of the Beis HaKnesses? What is behind it all? Why is it so important? What does it mean bringing the Kedusha down into the shul where you live? What's the nature of it? What's the depth behind it? That's the purpose of this year. To appreciate and understand the words of this great maskil, Rabbi Shteinman. What does he mean that you bring the Shekhinah down into the community? And especially if you're careful, if you have reverence and respect and dignity for the shul in which you live, for the full in your community. Let's start maybe with the words of the Nevuah of the Novi Hosea. The Novi Hosea brings in Perek Yud Daled in Hosea the following words. It's actually the Haftorah of Shabbos Shuvah before Yom Kippur, when we say it every single year. These are the words of the Novi. Shuvah Yisrael ad Hashem Elokecha. Come back, Klal Yisrael, to Hashem Elokecha, ki choshalta b'avanecha, for you have stumbled with the aveos which you had done, with the aveos, the sins which you had done. Kechui machim devorchim. Take with yourself words. V'shuvu el Hashem, and return back to Hashem. Imu elov kol tisa ovain. Say in front of him, please forgive any transgression which we have done. V'kach tov unashal mafoim sefoseinu, and let our tongues be in place, compensate for the bulls. Kechui machim devorim. To what extent? Unashal mafoim sefoseinu, and our lips should be the replacement of the bulls, meaning the bulls were the sacrifices. Let our lips replace the bulls. The next pasuk, Ashur lo yishienu, no other country will save you. You can't rely on America, you can't rely on any other country in the world. Al susna nirkov, and any horses which they used to bring in those times from Egypt. Don't rely on those horses or the weapons and the missiles which you might bring from somewhere else. Don't say that we are relying wholly, solely on our own actions, on our own hishtadlus. Asher b'cho yeruchem yosem, the Kodesh Baruch Hu will have rachamim on an orphan, meaning Klal Yisrael, Yisomim Anachnu. And these words are really the words which are the basis of the Kedushas Beis HaKnesses for the following reason. The words Unashal Mafoim Sefoseinu, Rashi and the Radak both learn out in that sentence. It means as follows. It's not that instead of the sacrifices you have the tefillah. It's not like that. It's a direct replica. Unashal Mafoim Sefoseinu means that our tefillahs which we say are directly instead of the bulls, meaning they make up for the bulls. And Rashi and the Radak both explain in this pasuk that the nature of tefillah is you are bringing a miniature Beis HaMikdash into your vicinity. When you daven and you have a mokum of tefillah, that place of davening is a Beis HaMikdash ma'at. That's the koyach of it. Meaning, it's not just a matter of, since we don't have the sacrifices, therefore we daven. No. The nature, says Rashi and the Radak, of the tefillah is that you are bringing a Beis HaMikdash into your tefillah here. You're not just standing somewhere and davening in a room or in a hall somewhere. You're davening in a Beis HaMikdash mat. Unafoim Sefoseinu means there is a direct compensation from the tefillah for the bulls, for the sacrifices which you make. And that's an incredible point which we're making here. Meaning, it's not just we found somewhere to daven and therefore since we don't have the Beis HaMikdash, therefore we're davening. No. The place where you daven, says Rashi and the Radak, is actually the place of the Beis HaMikdash, Mokum of Shechina. And the Gemara in Megillah learns out a statement of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. He says as follows, everywhere where Klal Yisrael went in Golus, whether they went into Mitzrayim, whether they were in Bovel, wherever they were, the Shechina followed them. To the extent that it was a Beis HaMikdash mad. It was a miniature Beis HaMikdash there. And that's the nature. V'shab Hashem Elokecha u'shavuscha, says the Gemara there, that Hashem himself comes back. When there's the Geula Shlema, the Shechina itself comes back, because the Shechina has been with them. Meaning, the Mikdash itself has been replaced in different places wherever Klal Yisrael were in exile. That's the nature of it. That's a remarkable point here. Meaning, we have some Elokim Nitzah Badas Kel, says the Gemara there. Meaning, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there. Therefore, we have to understand and appreciate this point. The shul where we daven is a Beis HaMikdash. Unashalma Foim Safosenu is a direct replica of the Beis HaMikdash. That's the extent that we have, which is a very powerful and profound thought. Meaning, we have to be very careful of the dignity and respect. It's a tremendous privilege to go into the Beis HaMikdash. It's a tremendous privilege to walk in a shul. That's the nature, and that's the mindset which we must have when we consider the point. I think that's what Rabbi Shteinman had meant there. Rabbi Shteinman had meant when he said that, be careful of the Kedusha, because that's the protection. What has happened here? You've walked into a miniature Beis HaMikdash. That's what Rabbi Shteinman had meant. And therefore, it's a very powerful concept here. The Kedushas Beis HaKnesses is the Kedusha of the Beis HaMikdash. Let me prove to you with different shubas which I found to explain this point. The great Chassam Sofer in Europe, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha, was once asked by a community, they wanted to renovate their shul, and they wanted to move the bimah from being in the middle to the front near the Aron Kodesh. And he asked, can we move it there in the front? And Chassam Sofer said as follows, no, it's better if you leave it in the middle. Why? Because a shul itself is a facsimile of the Beis HaMikdash. In the courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash, in the Azorah, in the area where they worked in the courtyard, the Mizbeach HaNechoshes represented all the sacrifices. All the sacrifices were brought and burnt and offered up on the large altar, which was in the middle of the courtyard. Since it was in the middle, therefore said the Chassam Sofer, so also the bimah represents that. The bimah represents the place where all the sacrifices were brought, and therefore you should not put it in the front. You should leave it in the middle. And he brought an example from the great shul in Alexandria, where they used to wave flags. People couldn't hear the chazan, but they waved them from the bimah, which was in the middle of the shul. That's the nature of it. Meaning, the koyach of the shul is a courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash, and therefore the bimah should not be at the front by the Aron Kodesh, but the bimah should be in the middle, and that's what you walk around with the lulav as well, like in the Beis HaMikdash when they went around with the lulav around the Beis HaMikdash, and the korbanos were offered on top. And I remember I used to go and daven sometimes with the great Reb Chaim Kanievsky, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha, in the Nederman shul in Bnei Brak. Every morning I noticed he would say the parsha of the korbanos, meaning the parsha of the korban tomid, and the other korbanos which you say in the morning before Shachris. He would say those at the bimah from a Sefer Torah. He would read them out from the bimah. I wonder if that was the reason why. Because of that. Because the bimah represents the Mizbeach HaNechoshes, the altar in the middle of the courtyard, and therefore it should stay in the middle. That's an example that we see there. The son of the Chassam Sofer, the Michtav Sofer, went even further than that. He explained as follows: if possible, you should try and make 15 steps going up from outside the shul into the actual shul itself. Like in the Beis HaMikdash, you had 15 steps going up from the Ezras Noshim into the courtyard, into the Azorah. The same idea as well. 15 steps going up. I haven't seen that anywhere. Maybe in some shuls they have steps going up inside the shul. But I remember I once went into the great shul of the Belz Beis HaMedrash in Unzov, in Yerushalayim. I think there are, if I can remember rightly, 15 steps going up from outside, and you walk into the shul itself. That's the idea. The idea is you're walking in like the 15 Shir Hamalos in the courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash. So also you had 15 steps going up into a shul. The same idea, the same concept as what his father said, the Chassam Sofer, about moving the bimah. You should be careful about that. He went further, the Michtav Sofer, and said as follows: also, the place where the chazan stands is a representation of the Mizbeach HaKetoros. Mizbeach HaKetoros was right in front of the Kodesh Kadoshim. And as you realize, of course, the Aron Kodesh represents the Kodesh Kadoshim, and right in front of there should be the place where the chazan stands. The Amud, where the Shliach Tzibur stands, where the chazan stands, is a place of like the Ketoros. And he went even further than that. And therefore, the chazan is like a kohen gadol with tremendous responsibility. He's looking after the prayers of the community, just like the kohen gadol looked after the avodas hakodesh, all the service which the people did in Klal Yisrael. He's that important, and that's the representation. It's a replica of the courtyard. The bimah is the Mizbeach HaNechoshes. The place where the chazan stands is the altar where they brought the incense, the ketoros. I think it's a posuk also in Tehillim, in Kuf Mem Aleph, where the posuk says, Have a look at the pasuk. Tikon tfilosi ketoiros lefanecha, masas kapai minchas erev. Let my prayer be like the incense which was brought. Meaning, the prayer where the chazan stands when he davens is like the altar for the incense there, and that's the power. And the chazan actually is like a kohen gadol, which is an incredibly significant point here. That's the nature of it. The Michtav Sofer went even further than that in a beautiful point and said as follows: that the Aron Kodesh should protrude out into the shul itself. Why? Because if you remember, in the temple itself, in the Kodesh Kadoshim, the badim, the stays which held the Aron, stuck out, and therefore says that Michtav Sofer. So also the walls which hold the Aron Kodesh should also stick out. Obviously, the Sefer Torah is a representation of the luchos which were in the Aron. It's all together. It all makes one scene. Therefore, the scene is an incredible scene. You're walking into a miniature Beis HaMikdash here, a Mikdash Ma'at. That is what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai meant. And then when he said that the Shechina went, not just the Shechina, the Beis HaMikdash as such went, and it's a copy of the Beis HaMikdash. And maybe that's also what Rashi and the Radak meant when we said Unashalma Foim Safoseinu. Not just that we're davening because we don't have the Beis HaMikdash. No, it's more than that. It means that the actual prayer which we said and the location where we're saying it, the bima in the middle, the amud, the place where the chazan stands is like the kohen gadol, the mizbeach hakatoros, and the stave sticking out, the Aron Kodesh, is like the Kodesh Kadoshim, and the luchais are the sefer. The whole picture comes together. Therefore, when you walk in, all the veneer, everything that you see, and the furniture and the fittings, you walked into a courtyard here. You walked into the Azor, which is a fabulous thought. That's the nature of the respect and the dignity when we say the Kedushas Beis HaKnesses. Kedushas Beis HaKnesses is the Kedusha of the Holy Temple itself. That's the point which we're making here. And therefore, I think that is the grounding, that is the background behind, I think, what Shteinman had meant. Of course, there is Limud Torah and the Shabbos and other mitzvahs, but you understand the point. You're bringing the Shechina down. The divine presence is brought into the community itself because you created something like a facsimile of the courtyard itself, with the steps going up. Maybe you've had 15 steps outside, but certainly the mindset is a mindset. You walked into a Mikdash Ma'at. Bearing that in mind, Rabbi Isai, I'd like to extrapolate and take you a little bit further. Take the point further. If we understand that the Kedusha of the Beis HaKnesses is really the Kedusha of the Beis HaMikdash Ma'at, if we follow that point, we who come in and daven are virtual Kohanim, no? We come in and daven inside the courtyard, which really, we're not Kohanim, but we have the status, it's virtually like a Kohen. If that's the case, therefore, if we are going to follow the point and take it further, and recognize the importance and the profundity of a shul, which is a Beis HaMikdash Ma'at, we are like Kohanim ourselves. We're coming inside, and therefore we must have the same mindset maybe of a Kohen. If that's the case, what I'd like to do is give you 3 ideas. They're homespun ideas. Then maybe with my vivid imagination I thought of these points. But I want to develop the point and say, when you come in and daven in a shul, if you're like a kohen coming to do the avodah in the courtyard, coming to the service in the courtyard, you're coming in on that basis, then maybe you should take certain ideas and thoughts, develop them out of what a kohen was, and therefore from those ideas we can develop the idea of the Kedushas Beis HaKnesses. I agree it's not exactly the Kedusha. What I'm trying to do is, though, open your mind, to give you an imagination. When you walk into shul, you're a kohen. You walk into a Mikdash Ma'at, and the Shechina is there. That's what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was saying, and Rava was saying in the Gemara and Megillah, and that's the words of Rashi and the Radak. It's more than just davening. It's davening in a Mikdash Ma'at there. That's the point behind it. And therefore, 3 homespun ideas. Maybe you'll say it's Drush, maybe it's a wild imagination, but I don't care. I think the point will get in, and I think this will bring home the point very much. What Rabbi Shteinman was saying is that the Shechina comes down in this basis. Let's start with the first idea. The Rambam brings down at the end of Hilchas Bechira the following point, which is a fabulous point, a beautiful point to understand. Imagine that you are standing at the top of the steps in the Beis HaMikdash, the top of the 15 Sheh HaManos, and you're looking onto the courtyard. You see in front of you the Mizbeach HaNechoshes, the large bronze altar. Then ahead of you, you see the Ohel Moed, and then the Kodesh Kodashim. That's the scene in front of you. You're facing Ma'arav. The Rambam brings down the following point, which is the beautiful idea. On the right-hand side where you're standing looking, you're standing at Mizrach, and you're facing towards Marav, towards the Beis HaMikdash, towards the Kodesh Kadoshim. On the right-hand side, underneath the ground, there was something called the Beis HaMoiked. The Beis HaMoiked was a furnace, a fire, where the Kohanim would sleep at night, and in that room they spent the night. Every single morning, says the Rambam, before dawn, before the Amud HaShachar, the Mamuna, who was the manager of the Beis HaMikdash, he was like the prefect, he was the administrative controller of everything that took place in the Beis HaMikdash. Interesting story, just the Mamuna, the Gemara brings down there, and Rambam also mentions this point as well. The Munna, this manager, would go around every single night with torches and with guards with him, and walk around all the gates of the Beis HaMikdash to check that all the Levim were standing in their place. If they came to a place and they saw the Levim were sleeping, he had permission to beat with sticks the Levim who were sleeping and even torch their garments. The Mamuna says the Gemara. And sometimes a Levi would scream out if his garments caught fire. That's the nature of the Mamuna was very strict with people, that the lower Levim shouldn't fall asleep. The Levim would stand at the gates at night and watch the Beis HaMikdash. That was their task. But the Mamuna had permission to hit them and also even to torch their garments as well, which is an incredible thought. This Mamuna, the prefect, every single morning in the Beis HaMikdash, he would arrive in the Beis HaMoiked and ask one of the Zakanim of the Kohanim there for the key to go into the Azor. Every night the courtyard was locked. He would take the key from the Zaken and go up with two teams of Kohanim with him, walk up to the steps and enter into the Azor. The Azor was closed at night. And two teams, they were standing on the north side, as they came up into the Azor, into the courtyard. And the two teams would go around the whole area of the base of the courtyard to check that everything was correct. One team, I don't know how many were, maybe 6 or 7 Kohanim, it doesn't say, the Mishnah doesn't say how many were with him. One team would go up towards the Marav and walk all the way around behind the Kodesh Kadoshim and come all the way around on the south side, come back down and come back to the place called the Lishkat Chavitin. Lishkat Chavitin was the place where they made the 12 loaves of bread for the Kohen Gadol. He would offer 6 in the morning and 6 in the afternoon. This was the korban of the Kohen Gadol every single day. 6 loaves of bread. They were not really loaves. Each one was a measure of a kazayas, a small measure. But the Kohen Gadol would bring up, it was a place, not the lechem hapanim, that was changed every Shabbos, but the chavitim were 12 loaves which were bought 6 in the morning and 6 in the afternoon. And they would stop, the first group would come round and stop at the Lishkat Revis, which was above the 15 steps. The second group would come the other way around. They would walk backwards towards Mizrach and come, it's a much shorter trip. They would just walk along the Mizrach and they would meet the first group at the top of the steps, the 15 steps. Their job was as follows: to check that everything was in order and the Azorah. There were no animals there, no insects around, everything was clean, all the kelim were in place, in position. They would check and see that everything was right. As soon as that was done, then the Trumas HaMizbeach, the Trumas HaDeshen, the ashes were cleaned up from this bed. That was the first task which was done on the large altar inside in the middle of the Beis HaMikdash. There's a courtyard there, inside the courtyard. But then the Mamuna would turn around to each group and say as follows: Shalom Hakol Shalom. If everything is shalom, everything is hakol shalom. And the first group would say everything is in order because they had gone one way round, up through the Marav and come round by the south and come to the stop there. And the other group, a much shorter trip. They would arrive there, the second group would arrive there much quicker. They would wait there. They would turn around and say to each other, Shalom Hakol Shalom. And then that was the sign to start the Trumas HaDeshen. The Kohen would mount the Mizbeach HaNechoshes in the middle and clean up the ashes on the side. What does it mean, Shalom Hakol Shalom? It meant in the Beis HaMikdash, I suppose, everything was clean and tidy. Everything, no animals was there, no dirt was there. Everything was ready to start the avodah. But Rabbi say, let's go a little bit further. And here's my imagination, which is really running along. The word shalom, as you know, is another name for the Almighty of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Gemara brings down in the Gemara in Shabbos that which names of the Almighty are you not allowed to use in the bathroom? Of course, Yud-Kei, Vav-Kei, and Hashem you can't use. Could you use the word Melech? Could you say the word Hamokaim? Could you say Harachum in the bathroom? And the Gemara comes down to the conclusion and says as follows: any other word you could use, but you can't use the word shalom. Why? Shalom is actually the name of Hashem. Shalom is his name. Meaning, when you say the word shalom, shalom, the Maharsha says there in the Gemara, when you make shalom, Oiseh shalom b'Moav, Hu yaseh shalom aleinu. When you have shalom there, it is the presence of the Shekhinah. Shalom means the existence of the Shekhinah, that the divine presence is there in that location there. That's the meaning of shalom. And therefore, of course, we come to a new meaning of what shalom bayis means. Shalom bayis doesn't just mean that a couple agree not to shout at each other, or scream at each other, or to smile at each other. Shalom bayis means much more than that. Shalom bayis means ish ve'isha shechina shuruyim b'neihem, that the divine presence is between them. And therefore, what does it mean? I'm suggesting, maybe in a bit of Jewish, but it's a bit homespun. The idea was as follows: Shalom hakol shalom, that the divine presence is there, but it means there's peace and there's tranquility and there's respect there. That's what I'm saying there. Between a couple, if you have the Shekhinah, you have the dignity and respect of one person to another. And saying the word shalom in the bathroom because it's not the place, because that is his presence. Maybe, I'd like to suggest as follows. Can you imagine every single morning, before we started davening Shacharis every morning, the Gabbai would stand in shul and say, Rabbi say, Shalom, Hakol Shalom, and then we start davening. No complaints, no disrespect, no arguments, no tainas, no hakpoda, no strict feeling. Everything would just be avas abiyas. Can you imagine the type of tefillah there would be? Everybody in shul would feel tremendous unity and harmony between each other, the unison of the community. If we would say in the shul, like in the Beis HaMikdash, in the courtyard, the Mamuna would call out, Shalom, Hakol Shalom. Halavai, we would do that also in the shul. Shalom, Hakol. Everybody who's davening here in this meeting loves each other, has care for each other. No one has any complaint about each other. We're all coming together with great simcha to talk to the Almighty. Can you imagine the effect that would be? Not just that the shul is clean and tidy, like the Azor, like the courtyard, but more than that. That there's a presence of warmth and friendship and acceptance of everybody else. And Abbas Abiyas. Shalom Hakol Shalom, I'm suggesting. That would promote tremendous kedusha of the Beis HaKnesses, that we're coming together to talk to the Almighty. I don't know, under those circumstances, maybe the Shekhinah would stand at the door and welcome us all. Please come into my home, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will say, and please daven towards me. When there's respect and avas abiyas, and no sinas chinam, no arguments, no katota, no machlokas. What a beautiful idea that would be. It's a drush, I agree with you, but that would promote tremendous kedushas Beis HaKnesses. That's the first thought that I had. And that would be perhaps the idea behind bringing the Shekhinah down. If there is peace and harmony between people, then certainly the Shekhinah is there. And maybe that's the point which Rabbi Shteinman was bringing out here. Once you have that feeling of Shalom, Hakol Shalom, we can suggest that you have something for the presence of the divine presence there. And that's the nature of the quality of harmony between Avas Abriyas, of people getting on, Bein Adam Lachaveyo. What a beautiful thought that would be. That's the first idea which I had. It's a mindset of a kohen, but it's taken from the courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash. The second idea which I thought of, is another halacha of the Rambam. The Rambam brings out in Hilchos Beis HaBechira the following idea. It's at the very end, Perek Ches, as follows. As you probably know, there were 3 Botei Dinim, there were 3 courts which were in the Har HaBayis. The first one was outside the Ezus Noshim, made of 23 Dayanim, and the second one was inside the Ezus Noshim, also made of 23, who sat in a semicircle. Then if you go up the steps, the 15 steps of Shir HaManos, on the right-hand side, at the very end, there is a chamber called the Lishkat HaGozis. The Lishkat HaGozis is the chamber where the Sanhedrin HaGedolah sat. 71 Dayanim of the great Sanhedrin, 71 of the greatest, most eminent Talmidei Chachamim in Eretz Yisrael at the time. They sat at the end. They sat in a semicircle in the Beis HaMikdash. It was called the Lishkat HaGozis. Part of it was outside, and part of it was inside the actual Zohar itself. It was strategically put in that place so the Kohen Gadol could go in there and talk to the Sanhedrin as well. But the Rambam brings out an interesting point. He says as follows: the main task of the Sanhedrin Gedolah was as follows, of these 71 Dayanim, was to test and to examine and investigate every Kohen who came to do the Avodah in the Beis HaMikdash, says the Rambam there. It's a Mishnah actually in Midos there. They would examine and investigate where's your yichus? Where do you come from? What's your background? If he has any tumah on him, they would inspect him physically to see if there's no mum on him, if there's no blemish on him, if he was able to serve, if he was not shikah, if his arms and his legs and his eyes, everything was correct. The main task, says the Rambam, of the Beis HaGadol was to check a kohen to see if he's correct and he's able to work in the avodah, in the Beis HaMikdash, if he's able to serve in the Beis HaMikdash. That was the main task, to check his background, if he knows, if at any time he had ever worshipped avodah zarah, even accidentally, he would be possible from the avodah at any time. If he made sure that his hands were washed, all the dinim of kahuna and tara and kedusha, which the kohen needed, they would check that out, the Beis Din Haggadah. What happens after that, Rabbi say? Then they change the garments. If the kohen was found to be apostle, he would wear black. If he was suitable and available to work in the avodah, then he wore white. In other words, the garments depended. You could see what type of person he was. And the Rambam brings out a beautiful point afterwards. If on one particular day all the kohanim who came in to work in the avodah were all found suitable and kosher, they would make a mishta and a simcha in the Beis HaMikdash. Why? Because all the kohanim were suitable to come and work in the avodah. What a beautiful thought. Meaning all the kohenim were suitable and available and correct, and they were kosher to work in the avodah. And therefore you have a kohen, let's say he's wearing white, and now he's been inspected and he's ready to work in the avodah in the Beis HaMikdash. Let's take it a bit further. What happens from there, Rabbi say? From there he moves in and does the avodah, whatever task he's given, according to the lottery which is made by the mamuna. Every task which they did during the day, the korban tomid, or the washing of the hands, or the cleaning of the mizbech, whatever the tasks were, sprinkling the blood, whatever the task was, he was now on his way. But he had to have tremendous integrity and tremendous responsibility. That's the point I like to bring in. Even though somebody was found to be suitable, from then on, he's on his own, and we trust him implicitly to make sure that his kavanah, his intention is correct. The work that he's doing, if he's doing it honestly, if he's doing it with the right sincerity. Supposing he's bringing a korban for somebody, and he's thinking of that person, not thinking of somebody else. His mind is not distracted. Obviously, the tests of the kohen are far, far greater than our own. But I'm thinking as follows. When we come into a shul, imagine, I suppose, we're a virtual kohen, but we're suitable. We're a kohen kosher. We're suitable to come in. But then what happens? Then it's up to our own integrity to stand there and daven with us the best possible task that we can, in the best possible way, with the maximum devotion and passion that we can in our prayer. A kohen on the basis of it, even though he was inspected and found to be suitable, nevertheless, from then on, he's on his own, and we trust him implicitly to make sure that the blood is sprinkled in the right place, that the animal is shechted in the right place, that whatever task is done, that is done correctly. I'm suggesting as follows. Also by ourselves, when we come in and daven, we imagine we are like a kohen kosher, somebody who's suitable to come. Let's say we're not wearing white, but certainly the understanding is that we're suitable to come and stand there. We're not shikha, we're not whatever the problems are. We come in and we're suitable to work. From then on, we're by ourselves. We have to be responsible in integrity that our prayers are said in the correct way. Just like a kohen, and that they trust him. So also, we are to be trusted with our prayers as well. One has to be honest and integrity for themselves as well. I'm suggesting, where do we learn that from? I think maybe we can suggest we learn it from the beautiful story of Hannah. Do you remember when Hannah came up to the Mishkan in the tabernacle in Shiloh, and she didn't have a child, and the other wife, Penina, did have a child, and she was very broken, and she would daven there. And Hannah davened for a child, and she said the word Amosecha, your handmaid, 3 times. Amosecha, to remember your handmaid. She said the word Amosecha. Chazal learn out, inside the word Amosecha is the word Misa, meaning that there are what's called, say Chazal, 3 death checks, which a woman is checked out at the time when we inspect her to see if she's suitable, if she's correct or not. Meaning Hannah said, I passed all 3 death checks. I was responsible for my Havoshas Chala. I was careful about Taras HaMishpacha, laws of Nida, and also Hadlokas Haner. She said the word Amosecha 3 times. Hannah came forward and said, I was responsible, I had full integrity for these 3 mitzvahs, which I'm obligated to do with the best of my ability. I'm careful. I was careful with my Chala, I was careful with Hadlokas Neos, I was careful with Taras HaMishpacha. And that's the meaning, the integrity which Hannah showed, and therefore, Tenli Ben, give me a child, because of that, meaning I'm suitable. I passed the test. I think that's the meaning behind it. There are different halachas which are brought out. A person should be very careful, meaning if your tongue is not full of sinas chinom, if you're not talking, and then you ask Hashem, so there's something called a toeva on your tongue. A person asks for great parnosa, but in the end he's holding ribis or he's holding gezel, property which he shouldn't have. There has to be integrity in the pair. I'm suggesting as follows. The idea of integrity is crucial inside the avodah of our prayer. And that promotes also the Kedusha of the Beis HaKnesses. Like the kohen, after he was passed the test and he found he was suitable to work, so also ourselves as well. When we come into a shul, there must be integrity in our prayers, that we are accurate, we are devoted, we are honest, we are genuine in our prayers, which we're saying. I'm capable of asking for parnasa because I'm careful of mitzvahs, of choshe mishpat, of money matters. I'm asking for this, whatever I'm asking for, do I have the right to ask it? Meaning, am I suitable to ask? Am I correct in it? You'll turn around and say, so everybody has faults, everybody has aveiros, and therefore the only person who can be accepted in his prayer is the tzaddik yesod olam. No, we're not saying that. Hashem is close to everybody, so long as it's a kriya be'emes, a call in kavana, a call with sincerity and devotion. But you get the point which I'm trying to make here. Like a kohen was tested to see if it was valid, after he was tested, he came in and davened. He has to have integrity. So also we do with our prayers as well. Without that, perhaps, I don't know if our prayers will be accepted. And I think that also promotes the idea of Kedushas Beis HaKnesses. I'm coming in, I'm genuine, I'm honest, I'm sincere, I'm meaningful, and therefore I passed the test. Like Hannah said, I passed the test in these 3 mitzvahs, therefore, ten li ben, give me a child. So also I think we must do the same thing as well with our own prayers. A certain integrity. Like the kohen had to have integrity, suggesting we also should have integrity in our prayers as well. That's the idea behind it. I remember this point came home to me, a personal incident that happened to my wife and I several years ago. We were doing renovations in our apartment when we lived in Hanoff, and a friend of ours suggested you should take a certain architect, and they said he's very, very good, he's very capable. Meet him and see. And we met him, and he was a 100% chiloni, a person who had no connection whatsoever with anything to do with religion, Torah and mitzvahs, nothing at all. He had no connection. And I didn't really want to take him. I really preferred to take somebody who kept Shabbos, who kept mitzvahs. And my friend turned around to me and said to me, you should take him. I said, I prefer not. He said, take him, it's worthwhile. He said, Yonason, try him out. And I reluctantly took him, and I regretted it afterwards. He had no connection whatsoever to it, and he really, in some ways also, he was anti in some ways. I remember he turned around to me, this particular person, and said to me as follows. He said, the best day of the calendar for me is Yom Kippur. I take my dog and drive down to the beach on Yom Kippur, and the beaches are empty, and I run along the beach with my dog on Yom Kippur. What are you telling me that for? He was trying to rub me up. He told me, he said, Friday night is wonderful. I go and buy my challahs from Angels, and I sit and watch a movie on Friday night. Why do you tell me these things? These were the things which he told me. It upset me terribly. But we took him, and that went on. I tried myself to try and work on him, maybe to be Makarev him. I thought maybe he never had a chance to learn Torah. I remember once or twice I turned around to him and said to him, Aryeh, maybe you never ever had a chance to learn a bit of Torah. Perhaps if you'd like to learn. I didn't get very far to that. He said, Yonason, keep off, leave off. I'm not interested. He made it perfectly clear. Keep away. Don't try and bring me closer. He was anti all the way. We took him, and his work was awful. We didn't like the work that he did. And it went on like this. What happened was, one particular day, this Aryeh turned up at the door, and he looked like thunder. He was furious. I could see he was a broken man completely. I said, Aryeh, what's happened? Come and sit down. He sat down at the table. And I said, what's wrong? You look terrible. You look miserable. He said, yes, I have the most terrible news to tell you. I said, what is it? What's so terrible? He said to me as follows. These are his words, Rabbi Isai. He said to me, this morning, I spoke to my daughter who lives in Texas. She called me up and she said to me she's getting married. I said, wonderful. Who is the chosen? He turned around and said, she's marrying a goy, a non-Jew in Texas. And I'm broken because of that. She's marrying a non-Jew. And I said, no, so what's wrong with that? Let's hear from him. I asked him, and he screamed at me. He said, what are you doing? What do you say? Marrying a non-Jew is the worst thing? I said, why? I put him on the test. He said, why is it so terrible? And he turned around and said the following words to me. This was his comment. I thought, talk about integrity. He said as follows, you don't understand. When I came to live in Israel with my wife, I wanted to be like an Abraham. I wanted to bring all my family here, and we'd all settle in Israel as a Jewish people living in Israel, not so much Jewish but Israelis. I wanted to be Israeli here. I thought to myself, goodness me, it's a little bit Oisa Maisa Zimri Umavakshim Schaka Pinchas. He acts like Zimri and he wants to be water pit. You can't do that. There's no integrity. He wanted to be like an Abram, but you have to act like an Abram, I thought to myself. And it made the point so sharp to me, this point. And I think that's the idea, the integrity behind a person. A person would like to be like an Abraham, but in order to be like an Abraham, you have to also act like an Abraham as well, with the Torah and mitzvahs behind you. It's a point. I remember a case which it made tremendous sense to me and made a tremendous impression impression on me. That's the second point. The second point is the kohen coming in after he was found to be valid and capable of doing the work. He had to have integrity in his work. And I'm suggesting the kedusha of the Beis HaKnesses also, with us, depends on that as well. The first one is Shalom HaKol Shalom. The second is integrity. The third one is really a pasuk from the Navi Yecheskel. The Navi brings down in Perek 46 in the Navi Yecheskel the following point. When you come up to the Beis HaMikdash, the entrance that you go in, you shouldn't go out the same way. You should try and go out in a different exit. Go in one way and go out another door. And the reason is, Rabbi Chaim Shmulevitz in Sichas Musa has a beautiful maimon. It's called Midas Haistalgus, meaning it shouldn't be too familiar. It shouldn't be habitual to you. The walls of the Beis HaMikdash should not be like the walls of your house. You go in one door and out, and everything's familiar, everything is known, everything is regular. It shouldn't be like that. There should be a certain freshness, a certain renewal, a certain idea, this is new to me, so that the Beis HaMikdash shouldn't appear to you as being something which is, oh, I know my way around. It shouldn't be. It should not be familiar to you. It should be an excitement, it should be something new. Like a kohen, I suppose, who came to do the avodah in the Beis HaMikdash, he maybe would come once a year, if he would come once a year. And who knows if he had a chance to be on the avodah. There was a lottery for every job which was done there, as I mentioned previously. Meaning, there has to be a certain freshness, a certain vitality, a certain newness, enthusiasm for it. When you come into the shul, maybe there's something like a problem called deja vu. I've been here before. I know everything. I know where everybody sits. I know my seat. It's all the same. And that's a tremendous problem in davening as well. Rav Dessler writes in Michtav Melior, one of the greatest challenges we have in davening is saying the same words over and over again, and yet saying them with passion and devotion, even though you know the meaning of the words and you see them all, but to say them with a newness, with a freshness to them. And that, I think, is really the language of the neshama, no? If you can say the words, and that's really the test, if you can say the words with vitality, even though you know them. And that's, I think, the point which the nature of the going in and going out of a different entrance, if you can. The Chofetz Chaim writes in the Hilchos Beis HaKnesses, if you can, you should do the same with the Beis HaKnesses. But very often it's not the same. Certainly when the door is by the Mar Mitzvach and you're coming into a Mar and you're coming in, there's one door going in and one going out. But if it's possible, says the Chofetz Chaim, try and go out a different way for the same point. Meaning, the floor of a shul is like the floor of the courtyard. You should try and go in a different way and out of a different way. And Rabbi Chaim Shmulevitz explains as follows. What's the reasoning behind it? Where did it come from? And he says that was one of the reasons why Klal Yisrael made the golden calf, the Egel. They made the golden calf because the Ohel Moed was in the Machane. It was all familiar to them. Aseh lanu Elohim, make for us a God, meaning they had Hashem there. They had it right in front of them. They were too familiar with it. And that's one of the reasons why Moshe Rabbeinu took his tent, Rachek min HaMachane. He moved his tent away. So it shouldn't be so familiar. He moved it away, says Rabbi Chaim. That's a problem. The problem is familiarity. Even though we go into the shul very often and we know everything and we know where everybody is, where everybody stands in every seat, everything, it shouldn't be like that. It should try and be like going in and going out of a different entrance. That was one of the challenges which I think a kohen had in the Beis HaMikdash, and that's our challenge as well. And therefore, one of the ways that we can promote Kedushas Beis HaKnesses, as Rav Shteinman says, I think in this way, to try and have a freshness, try and have a newness. It should be something, vitality. It should be something exciting, something new to us coming into a shul. You're coming into a Mikdash Ma'at, a place where the Shechina is, as that's what does the pasuk says? HaKadosh said, "Ani yeshena v'libi er." The pasuk says in Shir Hashem, HaKadosh says, "I was sleeping, but my heart is awake." Says the Medrash on that pasuk, "I was sleeping in the Beis HaMikdash, but my heart is awake in the shuls that you have." Says the Medrash there, meaning even though I'm sleeping in the Beis HaMikdash, you don't see me, but I'm alert and I'm awake inside the Beis HaMikdash. Elokim nitzah bataskel. His presence is there, His company is there, and therefore when we come in, we must feel that. How do you overcome that challenge? How can you possibly keep the excitement and the freshness? I think there's only one particular way, and that is preparation. Prepare for coming into a shul. You have to know how to walk into a shul, and that's the crucial point. If you have that, then you can retain the freshness and the newness. Let me explain the following way. Before you come to Leila Seder, you prepare for Leila Seder. The excitement comes because it's new for you. It's new for you, but you prepared for it. You prepare for Yom Noah, for Rosh Hashanah. The whole month of Elul is coming into. The preparation before keeps the vitality, keeps the freshness of it. And therefore, I think the same way as well. You must prepare to walk into a shul. How do you do that? I think in the following way. You should be aware that before you walk into a shul, there is something called an entrance lobby which you come into. As you come in, if you look in the Siddur, there are 5 sentences. Ma tovo halecha Yaakov, mishkanosecha Yisrael. That should be said outside the shul before you walk in. As you walk in, said the Chofetz Chaim in Mishnah Berurah, V'ani b'roiv chastocha b'ovis, I will walk in with your kindness, I will walk into your house. You walk in, take 3 steps, and bow towards the Aron Kodesh, and bow in front of the Aron Kodesh. That bowing is the respect, meaning, and then you say the rest of these sentences. Hashem, these 5 sentences, the 5 sentences are the entrance lobby into a shul. And once you have that, that's a preparation. You don't just walk in, but standing outside and walk in a certain way. And as you take 3 steps, say the words, I, with your great kindness, have come into your sanctuary, into your home. There is a principle which is brought down in the Sefer HaChinuch. Halev nimshach acha hapulais. The heart follows the physical actions. Meaning, if a person holds himself a certain way, then the heart is influenced by the actions that you do. Think of it a minute. If you walk into a shul and you say the posuk outside, you walk in 3 steps and bow down to the Aron. That physical action of bowing down, it creates a certain awareness and a reverence and a respect and a dignity for the shul that you walked into. If you can try and maintain the physical actions of this, that will promote a heart, and it will maintain this freshness which you have in your mind, the reverence for the place that you walked into. I think that's the point. If you can do that, then you can maintain this, avoid this deja vu, I've been here before. The physical actions of how you walk in are very important. There is a certain depth behind this as well. If you look at these 5 sentences, there are 42 words in these 5 sentences. If you know, the number 42 is also the number of the Almighty. One of his names has 42 letters to it. 42 is a launch into a different level of Kedusha. You walked from the street into a Beis HaMikdash Ma'at, into a small sanctuary, a small Beis HaMikdash. 42 is a launch. It lifts you up. If you remember, Klal Yisrael, when they left Mitzrayim, when they left Ramses, and they came to Gilgal, there were 42 stations. It lifted them up. They were ready to enter into Eretz Yisrael. The preparation for coming into Eretz Yisrael was 42 stations. And Chazal used these 42, the number 42, very frequently inside the davening. It's always a launch. 42 lifts you. The 42 words before you come in outside the shul to come into a shul are the launch to come into a place of a Mikdash Ma'at, a small sanctuary, a small Beis HaMikdash, we're explaining here. In the middle of the Korbanos, we have the prayer Ono B'Koyach, Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakona, which 42 words are used, which represent the 42 stations. The Korbanos are lifted up, are launched into a new realm of Kedusha behind it. That's the idea of the 42 stations there, the 42 words in Ono B'Koyach. Kaddish has 42 words in it also, inside Kaddish. It's a launch. You go from one level of prayer, from the Korbanos, into Pesukei D'Zimra, which is a higher realm. Pesukei D'Zimra begins with a Baruch She'amar, a base, and end with Chai Ha'olamim, a men, base and a member, 42, the 42 there. Shmona Esrei begins with the first bracha until Magen Avraham has 42 words. 42 is a launch. It lifts you up. You're going into this cocoon of sanctuary, a cocoon of Kedusha here. That's when you're standing in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the last pasuk is Yehu L'Rotza and Imrei Fi, has 42 letters in it, meaning you're coming out of it. You move on from one stage to another. And that's the power behind it. If you can do that, you can avoid the deja vu. You can avoid the feeling of I've seen it all and I've been here before. And that's the third mindset which I wanted to suggest. A kohen in the Beis HaMikdash maybe didn't have such problems. We have bigger problems. A kohen coming in once a year, maybe however he'll come in, he had tremendous enthusiasm and tremendous freshness. We have a problem with that. If we can take this point and our actions should reflect on our heart, halev nimshach acha hapulais, we can grow tremendously in this point. And these are the 3 points which I'd like to bring out. It's a mindset of a virtual kohen, I'm suggesting. Shalom HaKol Shoyim, meaning like the when the Mamuna went round and he checked and the floor was clean. So also with ourselves, if we can come in with tremendous love and harmony with all the people we're davening with. The Shalom represents HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Shechina, the representation of that. The second is to have integrity behind it all. Meaning the kohen, when he does the work, he's by himself. We also, even though we're kosher to come in and daven, there's certain responsibility and a sense of feeling of responsibility when we come in and daven. It's up to us what we make of it, like the kohen in the avodah as well. And the third point, which I'm suggesting, is the kohen, a virtual kohen also has this enthusiasm and freshness when he comes in. According to Rabbi Chaim Shmulevitz, that's the midah of histaglus, the feeling of familiar. It shouldn't be too familiar to you. And these are the 3 points which I was thinking. It's a mindset that are homespun, but I think these are the points which I like to suggest, which maybe develop the feeling of Kedushas Beis HaKnesses, which is what Rabbi Shteinman had said. If you can follow these 3 points, then the Shechina is amongst you there, and that's the protection which you have. He mentioned in the time of danger. The Kedusha of the Beis HaKnesses has tremendous Kedusha and the protection and security that it has in the area. But perhaps, Rabbi, so we can take it even further, this idea of living with the Shechina. I'd like to share with you a point which I remember once hearing from the great Rosh Yeshiva of Gateshead Yeshiva, Hagon Leib Shteinman. He once made a beautiful point. What does it mean, living with the Shechina? What does it mean that the Shechina is amongst you? He mentioned as follows. It's a remez, it's a hint. As you know in the Torah, there's pshat, remez, drush, and soid. Pshat is a simple meaning. Remez is a hint. Drush is a medrash, and soid is a secret. But it's a remez. It's a remez, but it's a beautiful remez. In the Mishkan, in the tabernacle, which they made in the wilderness, in the Midbar, there were 42 beams which made up the Mishkan. 42 beams went around altogether. The gematria of 42 is memches, which is the moach, which is the brain. Memches is the brain, meaning moach is the brain. 48 represents the moach. 48 beams, and the gematria of it is memches. If you look carefully, where is the Shechina? The Shechina is inside the moach. But take it further. What does the brain look like? The brain looks something like this. 2 sides facing each other. Isn't that really the remez to the kruvin facing each other? Anila doidi v'doidi li. Meaning, where is the Shechina? Shechina is inside me, not just in the object of the shul which I can. I myself hold the Shechina inside my mind. Meaning the 48 beams which represent moach, 48. That's what my mind is like. That my mind looks. The brain looks like 2 sides of it, like the kruvim. I'm suggesting it's a remez, but it's a beautiful remez. The Shechina is really amongst us and living amongst us. If you follow that point, it's more than just on the floor of the base of the shul, more than just the courtyard. It's in our minds as well where we live there. Maybe that's the beautiful reason behind the beautiful song. It's a poem, a poignant poem by Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid. He said as follows. It's a beautiful song. Bilvovi mishkain evne lahadar kavoidoi, which means, in my heart I will build a tabernacle to honor His holiness, His kavod. Uvemishkan mizbeach osim lekarnei hoidoi. In the mizbeach which I will put, I will respect His majesty. Ulenel tomid ekach li es eish ha'akedo. And a ner tomid I will take for me with a fire which is burning. Ulekorban akriv loy es nafshi hayechido. And I will offer myself. It's my nefesh which I'm bringing here. The most beautiful words. Again. Bilvovi mishkain evne lahadar kavoidoi uvemishkan mizbeach osim lekarnei hoidoi. It's inside me. Ulenel tomid ekachli. And I will take for myself a permanent light. Es eish ha'akedo. Where is the fire which burns? Ulekorban akriv loy. Where are it? Es nafshi hayechi. My own soul itself I will makriv. So it's not just Rabbi Isai that the Unashal Mafoim Savaseinu we're saying, like Rashi and the Badaka mentioned, it's the floor itself. It's more than just compensating. It's the Beis HaMikdash Ma'at. And the Beis HaMikdash Ma'at, we are like virtual kohanim when we come in to the Beis HaMikdash. But it's more than that. According to this here, that I myself am a representation of the Shechina itself. And that's the meaning of those also in Mikdash B'Shachanti B'Soichon, in them, and that's the Shechina. And Rabbi say, therefore, we can suggest as follows, meaning what Rabbi Shteinman had said, that security is brought by the Kedusha of the Beis HaNeshes, the Kedusha of living with the Shechina. If you're living with the Shechina, that is the greatest protection you have. He's there with you, and therefore, Rachmana litzlan, in times of danger, we should be aware. living with the Shechina, if you have it in your mind, if you're thinking, Anila Doidi V'Doid, in my mind, really the Mishkan is there, then certainly, Es Nafshi Hayachida, I myself will hold the Shechina, Shachanti B'Soicham, Amen, Ken Yehi Ratzayin. We should be spared from any danger and sorrow, a sorrow leYaakov, Vakha Maskal Be'ez Hazayis, only a maskal at such a time. Yidom Yit Koinein. I've given you, rabbis, a great deal to think about, meaning Ulai Nira Nechamas B'Yushalayim. Maybe with all this preparation that we have, we should be Zeicha, rabbis, to see the Nechama of Yerushalayim B'Mheira V'Yameinu. Amen.